Jesse Miller had been driving heavy freight through the forests of northern Oregon for more than 10 years. Long nights, empty highways, and endless silence were just part of the job. But one cold November evening in 2021, that silence almost became the last thing he ever heard. During a fuel stop at an old roadside station, an elderly cashier asked where he was headed. When Jesse mentioned he might pull over to sleep if he became too tired, the woman's expression changed. "Near mile marker 42, she whispered. "You'll see a sign for cabin rentals. Whatever you do, don't stop." Jesse laughed politely, assuming it was another local ghost story. Hours later, thick fog swallowed the highway. His eyelids felt heavy, and just as the woman had described, a faded wooden sign appeared beside the road. "Cabin, cash only." Too exhausted to keep driving, Jesse called the number on the sign. A calm man named Arthur answered immediately. "The cabin is unlocked," Arthur said. "Leave $60 on the kitchen table. One more thing, never open the bedroom curtains." The instructions sounded strange, but Jesse only wanted a few hours of sleep. The cabin stood alone in a clearing surrounded by dark pine trees. A black SUV sat silently near the woods with its headlights off. Assuming it belonged to another guest, Jesse ignored it and went inside. The place was clean, but a powerful smell of bleach mixed with something metallic filled the air. He left the money on the table, lay down, and quickly fell asleep. Sometime after midnight, he woke to complete silence. His bedroom door, which he clearly remembered locking, was slightly open. Then he heard it. Click. A slow metallic sound echoed from the hallway. Click. Heart pounding, Jesse grabbed his flashlight and stepped outside the room. The cabin appeared empty. Near a heavy cellar door, fresh wood shavings covered the floor. A brand new steel bolt lock had been installed recently, and it was now unlocked, as if someone had just opened it from inside. Fear took over. Jesse grabbed his bag and sprinted outside. The black SUV was gone. Fresh tire tracks showed it had been parked directly behind his truck, blocking the only exit. Without thinking, he slammed his truck into reverse, crashing through branches until he reached the highway. He didn't stop driving until sunrise. When he reported the incident, police found nothing suspicious. Weeks later, the cabin sign had disappeared, and fallen trees completely blocked the road leading to it. Jesse never discovered what waited beneath that cellar door, or who had been watching him from the darkness. But ever since that night, whenever he drives through lonely forests after midnight, he remembers the woman's warning. Ethan Vance worked as a timber surveyor in the remote forests near the Canadian border in Maine. His job required him to spend long days driving isolated logging roads where seeing another person was rare. One chilly afternoon in September 2022, while mapping an old forest trail, Ethan noticed a woman standing alone beside the road. She wore a thin yellow dress despite the cold weather. Her feet were bare, covered in mud, and she carried an old leather satchel. She wasn't waving for help. She simply stood there, staring at Ethan's truck. He rolled down the window. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I need a ride to the caretaker's cabin," she replied in a flat, emotionless voice. Something about her felt wrong, but Ethan couldn't leave someone stranded in the middle of nowhere. She climbed into the passenger seat without another word. For several miles, she remained silent, staring only into the side mirror as if watching something behind them. Finally, she whispered, "The woman before me left a warning. She told me never to stop. If he comes to the truck, keep driving." A chill ran through Ethan. "Who are you talking about?" She slowly turned toward him. Her bloodshot eyes never blinked. "When we reached the clearing," she said, "don't stop the truck. Not even for a second." A few minutes later, the trees opened into a small clearing. In the center stood a strange wooden shack with black smoke rising from its chimney. Ethan kept the truck rolling slowly. The woman opened the passenger door and stepped out while the truck was still moving. She calmly walked toward the shack. Before she reached the porch, the front door swung open. A huge man wearing a stained canvas apron stepped outside. He ignored the woman. Instead, he looked directly at Ethan. Then he started walking toward the truck. Fast. Without hesitation, Ethan slammed the accelerator. Gravel sprayed behind the tires as he sped past the man and raced down the logging road. He didn't slow down until he reached the highway. Later, Ethan reported everything to the police. 2 days later, officers searched the location. They found no man, No woman. Only the burned stone foundation of a building destroyed in a fire more than 40 years earlier. There were no signs anyone had lived there for decades. Ethan quit his job a month later. Even now, whenever he drives past that forgotten logging road, he catches the faint smell of burning wood. And sometimes, deep between the trees, he thinks he sees a woman in a yellow dress standing perfectly still, watching him disappear into the distance. Alan Cross was a 51-year-old compliance auditor from Indiana. He believed in facts, evidence, and logic, not ghost stories. In October 2023, he rented a quiet cabin in the woods for a relaxing weekend. The place looked ordinary: a warm fireplace, clean furniture, and complete silence. After reading for a while, Alan went to bed around midnight. At exactly 3:15 a.m., he woke up. Something felt wrong. Then he realized what it was. The old plastic wall clock in the kitchen had stopped ticking. The sudden silence had pulled him out of sleep. He walked into the kitchen, switched on the light, and took the clock off the wall to check the battery. There was no battery inside. Instead, someone had folded a piece of yellow notebook paper and hidden it inside the battery compartment. With shaking hands, Alan unfolded the note. It read, "She warned me not to stop when we saw the stranded truck. I ignored her. If you're reading this, the owner knows someone is staying in room 2. If the porch light goes out, don't look through the peephole." Alan frowned. The cabin wasn't a motel. It had only one bedroom. But when he turned around, he noticed a small brass plate on the bedroom door. It read, "Room 2. Before he could process what it meant, the porch light outside suddenly went dark. A second later, thud, a heavy object landed on the front porch. Alan's heart pounded. He remembered the warning. Instead of going to the front door, he quietly grabbed his keys and bag. He climbed out through the bedroom window and ran around the back of the cabin to his car. As he started the engine, the headlights illuminated the front porch. Standing beside the door was a tall figure wrapped from head to toe in a dark blue plastic tarp, tied with yellow rope. The figure held a rusted iron crowbar. It didn't move. It simply stared at Alan's car. Alan slammed the vehicle into reverse and sped away without looking back. The next morning, he reported the incident to the sheriff's office. The deputies promised to investigate, but Alan never heard from them again. Months later, while searching old newspaper archives, he discovered a missing person report. Just 3 weeks before his stay, a tourist had disappeared only a few miles from that same cabin. Her abandoned car had been found. She never was. Since that night, Alan has never stayed in an isolated cabin again. And every time he hears a clock suddenly stop ticking, he remembers the note hidden inside the battery compartment and wonders who left it there before it was too late.